How do? JR here. Welcome to episode 3, CARRACK Open Development. It's been a couple of weeks since the last episode. We've been busy with some other projects, but we have made a fairly decent amount of progress on the CARRACK. So let's run over where we were last time, what we've done, and what new things that we've tackled on it. So last week, or last episode, I should say, we were looking at the turrets, and we had this little turret here, which is the remote turret. Now, we had the same issue with this turret and the other manned center turret, in that the guns were too fine. Even though this is in a tough 2000 resin, which is very similar to ABS plastic, you sort of see that these guns are, although you can wiggle them, they are a little bit flexible. They are a little bit finer than I'd liked, and this pin that we put on underneath is too tough. It's too hard to squeeze. So that needed a little bit of tinkering with. So version 2, we now have this one. Guns are thickened up. They are far less flexible. It's difficult to flex them at all. So much happier with that. The pin, I've hollowed out the center of the pin. So this is much more flexible, so we're pretty sure that's going to pop into the hole. The whole idea of this, in case you missed the last episode, is we want to be able to, it's a free spin, because obviously it's a moving turret, but it's on the bottom of the CARRACK, so we don't want it to fall out. So we're going to kind of put this little spring pin on it, so it'll hold in and turn by itself. So that's that kind of fixed, so that's cool. So what have we been dealing with new stuff? Well, two main things. One, we've started tackling the aerials, or the scanner arrays. Now, in game, we currently don't have these actually working. Just fly around in here. They're a feature that has been sort of shown off by CIG on the artwork and what have you, but these are the antennas, and you can kind of see how they deploy. The geometry is there is the rams. I say we've also seen quite a few pictures when the CARRACK was first launched and since, of these arrays unfurled. So our model will have the unfurled versions of this. So we've got our first print of these pieces. Now I've decided to do the deployed versions of these first, mainly because when they're deployed, they're at the most fragile from a model point of view. So I wanted to make sure that when we get the thicknesses right, that they are right for the deployed version, and then obviously we can make the retracted versions the same thicknesses and things. We may have to make the slot for the smaller one slightly bigger on the fuselage by maybe 0.5 millimeter. So as a general rule, I work from the outside inward, so we deal with the worst case scenarios and bring ourselves in. So this is the smaller one. The magnet hole on this is not quite, this wall was a bit thin, so this has gone not round. But basically this is for a 3mm by 1mm magnet, which is a standard magnets we put in most of our kits. And these will obviously magnetize, drop in and out, pull out. So they'll survive being rattled about. They're not glued in, they are magnetized. This hole obviously looks smaller, but it's actually the same size hole. This is the much bigger version of the aerial. So that's the lower down one, and the upper one is the smaller one. And obviously there's this pair of a big and a small one on each side of the model. This is the ram that we've seen in the pictures and does exist in the geometry underneath what we see in the game. So this is all in. So it's all actually already in game. We just haven't got the mechanics and the animations in there to actually open them up. So that's where we are with that. So happy enough with these. They've not got the detailing on yet. This one is a little bit skinny, just the top. You sort of see it's a bit translucent, so that needs a little bit more tweaking. There's no way of making this so it sort of folds out on its magnet, unfortunately, because of this sort of scythe front facing part. That would sort of require a longer slot in the body than it should have to be able to go in without sort of hitting the ship. So it is going to be one of these cases, a bit like when we do with deployed and undeployed landing gear, where there'll be swap out pieces for the deployed and undeployed antennas. So that's where we are with that. These still haven't had the detailing on. There is slots in the back. There's actually slots that go all the way through in the model. We might have a go at it, but I think it's going to be a case of putting a recess on both sides, because if we go all the way through, this is going to be a wall that's less than 0.5 millimeter, especially on this small one. So we do have to be careful that we're not taking all the strength out of it, and these become really delicate parts. Again, this is in the Tough 2000 resin, so it's very much like ABS plastic, so it can take quite a lot of abuse, which is great for parts like this that are at risk of being knocked and things. So that's great. The other advantage of these on magnets, if you do swipe the model, you're more likely just to ping them out rather than snap them, because it's only a small magnet holding it in. It will just pop out. So that's quite handy. So that's where we are with these. So that's first progress, first prints. Not really going to do anything more with these yet until we get to the fuselage. Now that I'm happy with what thicknesses I need for these, I don't really need to learn anything else. As I say, I kind of work from the outside inward, so I do the turrets and the wings and anything that attaches onto the fuselage, because most parts for our kits require a dozen or so test prints to get them spot on. Now, if we had to do that with the fuselage, if we test printed a fuselage, so we're happy with it, and then we had to keep iterating on it as we start adding the bits and how they attach on, we could end up with a dozen or maybe 20 test prints of the fuselage. Now, it's not a huge issue cost-wise, it's more a time issue, because these are 20-hour prints. So all of a sudden you've added 2 weeks just for test printing an extra 14 versions of the fuselage that you didn't need. So again, I try and do all the things that are going to attach to the fuselage first, get that I'm happy with the thicknesses, and because they're going to be the more delicate parts anyway. And then once we've got all of those bits ready, all the landing gears, then we attack the fuselage, so that we already know what's attaching to it. So that's how I like to approach that. So that's the antennas. So that's all I need to do with them for the time being, so they can go away. So the other main thing we've been working on this week is the wings. Now, the wings on the Carrack shows how. There we go. Wings on the Carrack obviously sit in 2 positions. They're very complicated, to say the least. They look really simple, but they're not. So these wings have another aerial that deploys out of this sort of side pod when it's in flight mode. The rear landing gear is actually housed in this landing gear pod on the back. And of course the side turrets are attached to the wings. So we have an awful lot going on. And the other issue we have is that when this wing deploys into a landing state, it turns 90 degrees, it flips out slightly by about 10 degrees, something like that. The landing gear unfurls out the bottom, but the turret still stays facing forward. So there's an awful lot of moving parts, and this aerial disappears. So this was always going to be a bit of a challenge in 1-500. It's too much of a complicated movement to have it so that you can change all those parts individually. And obviously we need to have an interchangeable landing state. So what we're doing is having a flight state and a landed state whole wing. The whole wing is going to be an interchangeable part. So it's going to separate where it comes into the body of the Carrack, and this whole bit here will be removable. Now, we've already dealt with the fact that the little turret's removable because we're going to have a deployed and undeployed turret. So that will plug into either the landed state wing or the flight state wing. So that's how we're going to approach it. So it's more parts, but that's fine. But it means that we can consider them a more solid piece. Now, we have our first test print of this. So this was our very first test print of the flight wing. Give me a bit of a pencil for scale here. So I mean, it's not a huge part. I mean, they're quite small on the ship, actually. Now this had the aerial attached at this point. These were very flimsy. So this is our initial. We fixed all the focus camera. There we go. We've fixed all the initial geometry here. We've made all of the individual geometries manufacturing solid, but we haven't adjusted anything on it. So you can see sort of how translucent it is. It's quite a thin piece. We have issues that on this bit here, these walls here are a bit thin. These aerials here are probably going to be too delicate to do in this particular type of resin as well. And the where the landing gear sit, you can't really see the doors. All those little panel lines, because they're geometry panel lines, because they are separate bits of geometry, they're all a bit close, and those lines have disappeared in the size we've done it. And the other interesting thing is, this is one of the things I'd never noticed this in the game before, but the inside face of the wing has a little surprise that I didn't know about. And that surprise are these. Now, I had never... Ooh, there we go. I had never noticed that the inside faces of these wings had this sort of... I don't know what, like a radar fins, or I think just greeble. I mean, it's just greeble. Let's be honest, it's just greeble. But it's very cool, and this is all done with texture maps. So it's all being rendered by the GPU. So it doesn't exist in geometry. So what we've had to do is actually model it in geometry. So this is the updated wing, and on the back we've done a few things. So we've added in this panel geometry. We've thickened up the actual wing itself. We've separated out these panels on the landing gear cover so that they are more obvious. We've detached the aerial and made it out of the Tough 2000 resin so that we can make that out of a tougher material. We've thickened out these a little bit by about 0.5 mil. And we've dug some holes in here for the turret to slide in. So that's, and we've also added this pin. So this is a pretty substantial pin. I'll be honest, it's the biggest pin we've done on a model. It's also the biggest magnet we've put on one of our models. So this is a 5 mil by 1.5 mil neodymium magnet. Why have we gone much bigger with this? Well, when it's in its landing state, most of the weight of the whole 10-inch model is sitting on these wings. So that's why that plug is so long and so tapered, so that when the magnet sucks it into the body, it's actually got quite a lot of torsion force holding it. So when the weight of the model sits on this pin, because it's tapered and it's magnets at the end, it's giving it lots of nice sort of more even pressure on the internals of the fuselage to allow the model to sit on these two rear landing gears without it trying to pull the magnets out. So we've had to go on big pin, big magnet. We can go bigger on the magnet. We can get thicker magnets, which have more strength. I think at some point they suck in so fast you could damage the model. Neodymiums are really powerful. The other thing we have to consider is that the glue has to hold these magnets in without them just being ripped out. So there's a few considerations there. We don't want to end up with magnets permanently stuck inside the models. So we think that will be about sort of perfect sort of between the two. So we have our first test print of this. So this has got the retracted turret in it now. Take that out for the moment. So you can see the holes in there for the turrets to go into. We have our separate pin here. We've sort of lost the middle spire in here, and these are flexing, so we still need to do a bit of work on that. But we have got our geometry on the inside now, which looks really nice. I'm really pleased with it. They're all going in the right direction for the game. We've definitely got a bit more definition, maybe a little bit more required on this landing gear bay. And there's our big pin. So you can kind of see the size of this pin. I'm not sending those bits off, but you can see the sort of size of this pin, and the magnet's going to go into it much bigger than stuff we've done before. So this is going to be able to take all the weight of the model, which is really nice. And then the other thing that we have to deal with is I said, the landing state. So let's get rid of those. So this is the wing in its landed state. So as you can see, it's turned 90 degrees. It's then turn about 10 degrees upwards. We've still got all that tessellation. We can now see the inside of this landing gear bay. I'm going to call it bay, I don't have a better name for it. And then this is the landing gear. So again, landing gear is going to be done in the tough resin, so it's a separate piece that will glue in. This doesn't need to be on magnets. This will be glued in because the whole wing is coming off as the landing gear. So like we've done in the past, this whole wing is effectively the landing gear. So it's on one magnet, which is quite nice. This shaped pin will obviously keep it straight and stop it from turning. The tapered aspect of it, that will stop it from turning as well. We'll have a bit of an experiment with this plug. We'll do some test prints of just a plug and a socket just to see how strong it is. Yeah, so that's where we are with that. Not done a test print of this yet. It's lined up. Our printers are very busy at the moment, so waiting for a test print on this for the parts, but we'll certainly have that for the next update. And then what's next? Well, we probably want to do the cargo pods and the front landing gear because they're quite close together on the model. Again, there are more things that attach into the fuselage, and then after that, what's left are the front ramp, the vehicle ramp, and the nose, i.e. the bridge canopy. So we're working through all these bits that are going to be attached to the model itself, which is really good. I was looking through some of the questions we had from the previous videos, and there was a couple from A Little Bit of Madness. Always rely on a little bit of madness for some great questions, has to be said. Let me find them 1 second. Don't want to listen to the video. There we go. Right, so question 1, what's the colour scheme? Will you be going for a gold cockpit like the latest skin released? You'll have to wait for that one. We have a plan to how to do the cockpit on this. So the standard CARRACK has a blue tinted cockpit. The Explorer variant skin has a pinky red tinted cockpit. The International Expo 2950 skin has a yellow tinted cockpit. So obviously we could do them clear and expect you guys to tint them. Doing a consistent tint on a clear piece is difficult, so we don't really want to make you guys do that if we can help it. But we do have a concept of how we're going to do that, so rest assured you will find out about that very soon. Will it have a Pisces or a rover? Nedcat asks. Well, of course it will. Yes, we will be doing a little diorama piece of a little Pisces and a little rover to go in this. We're putting a lot of effort to get the vehicle ramp and the hangar in and interchangeable like we would usually do. So yes, of course, there's got to be the little Pisces, there's got to be the little rover to go in it. So they are on the list of things to do, which will be really cute. Lots of Gib CARRACK, lots of Gib CARRACK, hype CARRACK. Thank you for everyone who has commented in videos. If you have any questions, please stick them in. We will try and answer them both in the comments and in future videos. And yeah, thank you for tuning in, and I shall see you in the next update. Ta-da!